Hi, everyone. This is Krista Moore, and welcome to the Krista Moore Show. Today, we have a very exciting guest, and I'm looking forward to sharing her story about purpose and passion for all of you. Welcome. My guest today is Julie Hansen, and what's fun about having her as a guest is I love to share stories of passion and purpose. And in her case, she is a former actress, and she's bringing that passion into her business as a sales expert and video expert, and teaching us how we can establish relationships through video and in selling. So I want to welcome everyone. Julie Hansen, how are you today?
I am great. So nice to be here with you, Krista.
Yeah, it's terrific. You know, we know each other socially, and we belong to a few networking groups. And yep. I've seen some of your work, and I thought, my goodness, this is such a prominent time in the world where so many sales professionals and businesses need to better understand how to build relationships through video. Why don't you kind of give us a little bit of background on you and how this concept kind of became yours?
Sure, absolutely. And I love the focus of this show being on passion and purpose. And, I was a salesperson for many years. And actually, when I first started in sales, I came from a buying background. So I felt a little uncomfortable as a salesperson because everybody seemed so confident and, saying all the right things. And so I thought, what can I do to sort of, really throw myself into the fire? And so I started taking some acting classes. And I didn't know at the time. I mean, it really helped me build my confidence. And I always say it helped me more than any sales training I had.
That's so funny because I'm thinking, a lot of people that go into sales, they might go to a speaking, course,
right.
where they're learning how to stand up in front of a room and speak fluently, or a Dale Carnegie or something like that. Choosing acting, that had to have been something that you really wanted to learn more about.
It was. I enjoyed it as a kid. And I also, what I love about acting, which is different from many of the, as you said, the speaker training, the Dale Carnegie, is it really starts on the inside. And it really is about you fitting in your role, understanding, how to connect with the other people in the play, in the show. Really being clear on your intentions and really stepping into the role and not in an artificial way, but just trying to relate to, okay, who am I and what do I really want? And how do I bring myself to this role?
Yeah.
And I think in sales, we are in a role, we play lots of different roles in life. We're parents, we're friends, we're soccer coaches, and we don't turn into another person. We just bring certain parts of ourselves to that. And that's what I learned as an actor, that it really transferred well to sales.
So as an actress, I remember reading you were also doing, like you did over 50 commercials. You were on Sex and the City. So this wasn't just something you were dabbling in either.
No, I just loved it. I just loved it. I love sales, but this really fed that other piece of me, that creative piece. And I actually took like a year and a half off, moved to New York, and just full-time acted for a while. But, when you've made a little bit of money, it's really hard to say, I'm going to be a starving artist.
Yeah, right.
So, I enjoyed it, and I did a bunch of commercials and shows, and, you're going to be a star for a day, and then you're back in the audition line. It's like sales. And actually,
Your company is called Acting for Sales. And when I think about acting for sales, my first thing that comes to mind is I remember back in the day when I was in sales and I'd be calling on a large account and I'm a little nervous and I'm getting ready to go in. I would actually say, this is an in-person meeting, I would actually say in my head, it's showtime, and that was like the mental preparation that I needed. Like, okay, now I'm going to show up and I'm basically on stage and I'm performing at my trade the best that I possibly can. And that's what comes to mind for me when I heard the name of your company, Acting for Sales. And I think that that's some of the stuff that I want to talk about today, right? I want to share with others what are the key things that they can do to build relationships through video. Now, first I want to share some statistics that I know you're very well aware of in terms of, what percentage of salespeople today are selling virtually and really feel that they're not being effective. 70% of all sales professionals surveyed said this from Corporate Visions. And this information is also found on your website, but also 80% of the B2B sales interactions between suppliers and buyers, they're going to be occurring digitally by 2025, if not sooner, right? So there's a gap here for businesses and sales professionals to understand the importance of, hey, I still have to build a relationship. And now I've got to do it through video instead of in person. So there's so much that we all can learn from this.
And, I don't know any salesperson who looks at those numbers, looks at that 80% and goes, oh, fantastic, more of this, right?
Right.
Most of us are like, oh, and I get it. It's currently it's a very awkward, unfulfilling experience for most people. And frankly, that's because, I applaud everybody for getting on video, doing the best they could with very little training. And, but we've kind of stuck there, right? We're stuck there. And it's not enough to move us forward and to compete in a hybrid world. We have to be able to transcend this virtual environment, make those connections. And, it's interesting, Krista, because, bring acting into this. Like most actors, I started out doing theater. So you're doing live performance, much like sales, you've got a live audience, feed off that energy. You can see when something lands and when it doesn't. And, you have your whole body to express yourself and energy. And so when I went to my first on-camera audition, was for a little independent film, I think, and I went in there and they turned the camera on and said, action. I was like, I didn't know where to look. I didn't know if I should look at your actor. I was like, what do I do with my hands? They feel really awkward. Am I in frame? Just very wooden. And of course, I did not get the part, but I did take some on-camera acting classes, and that's what people do. The fact that a lot of people think that actors and reporters and all these people that are on TV or movies are natural at being effective on screen that's a fallacy. Yeah. It's not natural. Nobody's born knowing how to do this. The camera is very different in the way it reads things, and your environment is very different. It flattens things out. It takes off your energy. So you have to accommodate.
Let's talk about the energy piece for a moment.
Sure.
And what I've learned in just working through a video opposed to in person, and this would go for any sales professional that's meeting with a client, it almost feels as though I'm thinking my energy level needs to be here to, portray that energy coming through the video, but really it needs to be here because I feel like I'm giving all the energy that I possibly can, but it doesn't come across that way.
It doesn't.
What are your thoughts on that?
You are absolutely right. There's a saying that the camera adds 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately is true. It does. Because it flattens things out, right? But it also, what people don't realize, it also takes away about 10 to 50% of your energy. Because things are flat, because it just doesn't, energy doesn't come across, it has so many barriers to get to the other person. Yeah. You have to compensate for that, because you're absolutely right. People that may be very engaging in person, they have just the right level, and they come across, very charming and fun. On video, they often come across very lethargic and very low energy. And, the camera reads energy. And I often have people do an exercise where they go over the top, they go bigger, and it's an acting exercise. Just go bigger than you think is acceptable. And oftentimes I'll record people and they'll go, oh my God, that was so, I was so out there. And we'll look at the recording. It's like, no, actually you were right where you need to be.
Yeah. I'm glad that we're sharing this, because I think that people in person are way more comfortable just naturally. But when you're on video, there are some people that shy away from raising that level of energy because they don't want to come across as too salesy or too theatrical, to use your term.
Yes.
And but we're saying, I guess, right now is that you need to up level that energy in order to come across in the way that you want to your audience.
Yes. And to your point about it being theatrical or fake, I am not talking or advocating for generating, false enthusiasm, because the camera reads, camera's a lie detector. So if you're being phony, it will pick it up and your audience will pick that up. But I know most people I talk to, if I see them engaged in a conversation with somebody they're really excited to talk to and they're really enthusiastic, and I've seen them exhibit that energy. I know most people have that. It's how do you access that real energy and that real enthusiasm and bring that to each call. And that's the process that I learned as an actor that I think is missing. Oftentimes salespeople, business people think they can just turn the camera on and go from 0 to 100 right then. And it doesn't work that way for most people.
Yeah. One of the things that is pretty obvious during COVID, and Zoom became a household name, and many professionals were now engaging with their prospects, their customers, and colleagues through video. And like you said earlier, quickly they learned, I need to have the right camera and the right lighting and the right microphone. And they concentrated on having the technical equipment. I'd like to spend the rest of our time really talking about more of the technical skills that salespeople and business professionals need to have when they are trying to build relationships through video. And you do a great job training and communicating and writing and blogging on this subject. So I wanted to pull 3 of them out of you today that you think would be, the most interesting for our audience.
Absolutely.
So what would you say number 1 is?
Number 1, well, first of all, I'll just couch this by saying, relationship experts agree there are certain essential qualities that need to be present for a relationship to take off. And many of these qualities are easily communicated naturally, and on video, there are some that are often lost or misunderstood or, non-existent. And if we're trying to do all those technical things and we don't have those qualities, we are really just putting a Band-Aid on a much bigger problem. So I talk about, there's as many as 5 major qualities that we need to have. And I talk about it in my book, but I want to talk about 3 today. And the first one is being a great listener. Now, this isn't news to most people. You need to be a good listener, right? And let me ask you this, Krista. Have you ever been at a party or a networking event and you're talking to someone and their eyes are constantly kind of scanning the room, maybe looking for someone more interesting to talk to? How does that feel?
Exactly. And, I learned once that you're better off in that setting, and it's just asking questions and listening instead of you being the one doing all the talking, right? Because people like to talk about themselves.
Right. But if someone is talking about themselves and you are scanning if you're talking and the other person is scanning, it's like, I'm sorry, am I not interested?
Yeah,
it's not like a good feeling, right? And this is what happens all the time on video calls, because our customer or our partner is speaking and we are doing what?
Yeah.
We are looking at their screen.
We're looking around. And even more so, like, okay, let's do that as an example.
Okay.
So you're talking and I could just be sitting here writing, or I could be looking over here at my watch or checking my phone.
Right.
And my camera is right here, but you're down here. Should I be looking at you or should I be looking at the camera? Those are such obvious listening skills. let's call it active listening for a moment,
Yeah,
right?
it is. It's active listening. And it's counterintuitive because here's the thing. If you're not looking at the camera, you are not connecting with the other person. And you can say logically, well, they know I'm looking at your screen. I don't know that. People don't know. If you're not looking at them, they don't know what you're looking at.
Mhm.
It's not when we're together in person, we have a shared environment, but you could be looking at your screen, you could be reading an email, you could be, like you said, looking at your watch. So logically, I may give you the benefit of the doubt and go, okay, she's probably looking at my screen. But you know what? Relationships aren't built on logic. They're built on emotion. And emotionally, it feels like, this person is really not that interested.
Mhm.
And we are doing a terrible job virtually of making eye contact. And I know it's difficult, but people don't care what your excuse is, frankly. All they know is how they feel. And so we absolutely, to be a good listener, we have to be an observant listener. And
So
we
when you
have to
say-
look at
when
the
you
camera.
said- and so it's really listening through our eyes. I mean, I'm trying to make
Yeah,
a
that's a great way to
correlation.
say it.
So
Yes.
if you're listening to someone, they're going to feel as though you're actively listening because you're shaking your head and you're smiling
Mhm.
and you're asking questions instead of doing all the talking. Those are the
Right.
types of things I'm thinking about. Mhm.
Yes, and to add to that, there is a chemical that is released when we make eye contact. Have you heard of oxytocin?
Yes.
So they call it the love hormone, which sounds a little inappropriate for business, but it's a hormone that's released through when someone makes eye contact with you. And it what it does is it makes you feel more at ease and relaxed because it reduces the stress hormone cortisol. So we feel more connected. So there's lots of great reasons for a relationship to use eye contact. And the problem is that it's not easy. If it was easy, all I'd need to say would be look at your camera. But instead, I had to write a book about it.
Yeah.
And of course, because it's totally counterintuitive.
Well,
It's
there's a disconnect too for a lot of people because it really depends on where their position of their camera is.
Well, it's
If their camera is at the top of their computer and the talking person is down here in the lower left corner of Zoom, it's like, where do I look? Do I look at the camera or do I look at the person? And so I think technically that's an important piece because some people might be thinking, well, I've got to look at the person so I can see them, but they're seeing you differently because you're not looking at the camera.
right. So it's a combination of technical setup and also acting techniques to make this work. Because think about it, a lot of times our customer isn't even on camera and we still have to look at the camera and have this dynamic conversation.
Yeah.
So there's some acting involved in terms of I need to be able to see your face in there and I need to imagine your response because otherwise we're engaged in this monologue. And that's why there's so little conversation taking place virtually because people just talk because they can't see anybody respond. So I'm just going to keep going and because it's uncomfortable. And that does not foster a relationship.
That's right.
So you can set up technically, you can, set up your images as, close to the camera as possible. It's not going to be a perfect fit. I teach people how to use peripheral vision to understand sort of on a macro level what's happening with body language. But, there's times where we can break eye contact with the camera, but you have to know when those times are because like I said, if while someone's listening, you're not looking, that's a real sign of, inattention.
Yeah,
there are times where you can look away without, I call those the sneak peek moments without getting punished for it.
And what would you say is the second kind of key to building relationships on video?
Well, one of the other ingredients that's necessary for a relationship to take place is empathy. And most salespeople I know are very empathetic and very interested in their customer and their well-being. But empathy is not conveyed just through words. And right now we are making our words do all the heavy lifting on video, because what I see 9 times out of 10 when I am on a video call is somebody's face that looks like this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you could be telling me you have 2 weeks to live, and I'd be like, oh God, that's terrible. And my face looks the same as you told me I just won $1 million. Oh, that's great. Right? And what I call this resting business face. And
that's a nice way to put it.
It is a nice way to put it. And that's what we're presented with as salespeople. We see it on our customers. And most people don't know, because we don't have this self-awareness about how we come across on video, that that's how we're presenting ourselves. That's how our customer experiences us. You have to know what your face is saying. Let's face it, we have this, we are projecting 10%, maybe 15% of our body has to communicate what 100% of our body and our energy used to do in person. If your face is not telling me how you feel about what you're saying, then you're not helping your case. It's just you're just sending words.
Well, what would you say is the easiest and best way to show empathy whenever you're on video? I mean, what am I doing that is portraying empathy to my audience?
Right. Well, a lot of times we rely on these, we'll lean forward if somebody says something that we're concerned about. As and some of those things don't read well on camera, right? That can be very aggressive and sort of in your face. A lot of the things that we used to say when somebody would talk about a problem, those sounds don't necessarily come across on video, especially if the other person is talking. Yes. So we have to, and this is part of acting too, we have to be in touch with our facial expressions and be able to authentically, we don't want to be mugging like, we don't want any of that, but we need to amp it up. And that's part of that energy, and part of that warm up is making sure your face is engaged in what you're saying. And the only way to do that, I tell people to start by review one of your recordings and go through and look and just see, when you're talking about something, does your face match your expression? If you're talking about something good, do you look happy? If you're talking about something, that's troubling, do you look troubled?
Yeah, it almost feels as though whatever you're feeling, that you're able to express that.
Yeah, and that's not
verbally, but through your face. I'm kind of playing around with it right now.
Yeah, and this is a big area for business, because we have been taught to be kind of tamper down our emotions and be very buttoned up, and so we need to loosen up some of those old bridles that we had on that kept us from emoting, because otherwise we're just a talking head. We're like the newscaster who delivers good news and bad news with the same exact tone and face.
Yeah,
and that's not working for building a relationship.
Yeah, I think the only thing that we can learn from them is maybe the first part, which is they're keeping their eye on the camera, right?
Right. There are some good things. And, actually they've gotten a lot better. I think reporters especially are more, they're more down to earth. They're really let their emotions shine. So yeah, that's kind of the old newscaster image that I'm talking about.
Yeah, that mentality. Yep.
Yeah.
So what would you say is number 3? What's something that you would say? I know you've got many, but we're looking at kind of the top ones today.
Yeah. So number 3 would be trustworthiness, credibility, which is, it's so important. I mean, not just in business relationships, but any relationships. And the thing is, your credibility is, it's unlikely that your credibility changes just because you're on video, right? You're the same credible person. However, there are things that people are doing that are taking away from their credibility and making people, frankly, doubt their trustworthiness. And one of those things goes back to eye contact. We associate a lot of different meanings with certain types of eye contact. So it's not just direct eye contact we need to make, but we need to, avoid the, I see people trying to, check image, go back to the camera, doing a lot of this, sneaking around, and that looks suspicious. That doesn't instill trust or, credibility. or they're just not, they're not, again, listening when you're talking. So trustworthiness is really something that is hard to convey on video. It's something that we can do with eye contact. There's also a study that's by body language experts that shows that, one of the ways that people learn to trust us is by seeing our hands. And if you think about it, it goes back to, it's kind of that open palm thing. It goes back to caveman days. Like, if I can see your hands, I know you don't have a spear and you're going to kill me. Right?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. From a body, I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when people are in these unnatural, just the extreme close up, which they're rarely used in film and they're used all the time on business video and they're terrible. It's very hard to get your hands into the picture. Right. So people oftentimes aren't set up, or they don't know how to use them, because there are also things people do with their hands that impact their credibility.
Right. And I'm thinking just in video too, just the distractiveness of that. A lot of people might not have a high quality camera that's handling the moves, and it gets fuzzy and blurry, and then everything gets distracted.
Right. The camera does not like fast, vague movements. So what to build credibility using your hands, it's not like you got to, talk with your hands and be a mime or anything, but there's certain times where you can support what you're saying by using specific, precise movements. It also gives a fuller picture of you. And that's one thing that helps us connect, is just seeing you're not just a bobbing head on the screen, right? So some of those fast movements too, they make you appear nervous or uncertain. And so that doesn't help build your credibility either.
And when I think of trustworthiness too, in the sales environment, I'm also thinking about these sales professionals that are presenting their offering to a prospect or to a customer. And there's so much that they could be doing on video to build that trust that is so important in, creating the sale. But even things as simple as being on time,
right.
Or, being
keeping your word. Like, and I say that all the time. It's like, if you promise someone you're going to end at, 10 till the hour, you end at 10 till the hour, unless their boss is the one that says, no, we're staying, right? You got to keep your word. So all the things that we do to build trust, all those behaviors that we do in person, certainly we need to keep doing. But there's a whole other element of what reads, how does their customer read our behavior? And are we consistent? Because we inherently don't trust people whose words say one thing and their body language says something else.
Yeah.
Right. If you tell me this is going to be, a great solution for you, and we've helped many customers, and you're kind of, moving around and all over, I'm not buying it. Right. So we have to be consistent. And again, we have to develop that awareness, and we also have to develop that muscle memory to work within the confines of this space, because, I'll just say that the last thing about being, building a relationship, one of the things we really need to do is to be present, right? And you can't be present if you're working on your eye contact, if you're working on your movements to keep them in frame and to slow them down and be more precise. You have to do that work ahead of time. And that's one of the lessons that I learned as an actor, that all this work way before the performance has to be done. It has to get in your body and become just part of you, so that it is authentic and you're not struggling with it in the moment. So then you can focus on the other person. You can focus on your message.
Yeah, that really resonated with me, because I keep thinking of practice, right? I mean, if you're an actor, you're memorizing your lines, but at the same time, you're bringing in that authenticity to it, and you want to connect with whoever's watching you through the medium. So sales is almost the exact same thing. I mean, but we've got to practice some of these elements, right?
Right. And the unfortunate thing is right now people they've been on camera for a while. They're like, well, I kind of know this. It's like, well, what you're doing now is you are reinforcing some of these patterns that you have developed through no fault of your own, because you were thrown on camera. But, your company gave you a camera and some lights and said, go, and look at the camera. and that's not sufficient, right? And so now a lot of times when I work with people, it's like, sort of breaking some of those bad habits and like, how can we, take what you're doing? Comfortable is not the same thing as good, right? Oh, well, I'm comfortable on camera. That's great, but comfort does not read well to your audience. I don't want to talk to somebody who's comfortable, because when we're comfortable, it's like, yeah, so, we're laid back, our energy goes way down, we're just kind of lethargic. It's a bad misnomer that we need to be comfortable.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you to share with us some of the different programs that you're doing in your business. Master classes I've seen, and you have a YouTube channel that you share a lot of your content. Just give us a little bit of an understanding of what you're doing to share your knowledge and your experience with the sales community.
Sure. Well, when the pandemic struck, I saw everybody struggling with the same things I struggled with as an actor when I was transitioning to film and television, and without any, knowledge or training on how to do that. So what I did was I took all the things that I learned and that I'd been, teaching virtual skills for years before that, but it wasn't as widely accepted. And I put those into a video course where I walk through, because you can take any course that'll tell you how, you need to look at the camera. Oh, you need to read body language. How do you do that, right? How do you do that? What I love about acting is it's very practical, it's very tactical. And I break down, okay, what does that mean? When do you have to look at the camera? How does that feel? And I give, practice lessons and have people record things and give them guided evaluations. Yeah. And then we do some coaching on that. A lot of times afterwards, when I work with teams, they'll go through the course and then we'll get on some coaching calls where they really apply it in real time and get feedback. So that's been really a great foundation, I think. And people who found it have been like, oh, I didn't know all these things.
Well, you know that when I wanted to interview you for this, I didn't know all these things. And I mean, it's interesting because I'm more clear now than I was even at the beginning of our show, how these two, acting and sales, are incorporated. And really, it created this awareness for me on how the timing of this is really pretty essential, right? Because there's so many people that that need to know and need to understand what you're teaching.
Right. And I'm sorry for the reason that it's timely, but it absolutely, I think we would have gotten there eventually just because of the way the world is.
Sure.
But it's absolutely necessary. And I think we're really at a turning point where it's like, are you going to get to the next level and really break through the screen and be the person that connects with your customer? Because if you're not, and they maybe have some vendors calling on them in person, how are you going to compete with those people that are live?
That's right.
So that's a consideration.
And you wrote a book.
I did. I wrote a book.
Yay. By the way, the title is great, and I love the imagery. Yeah, it's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just one of the many issues. It's not all about eye contact. It's about how to engage people, because one of the, I've coached 1,000 people over the last year, salespeople, and one of the big, I've included like the biggest challenge they face, and which is, why are people so passive on video, right? And they are. And so how to deal with that and how to both bring them out, and also how not to panic by, when you see someone's resting business face, because we instantly go, oh my God, they hate me. This is boring. I better rush. And it's just a mess. So, anything from body language to engaging people to how to use your tools, how to use multiple screens, and how to present content and, manage your tools, how to use a producer to have someone kind of help you if you've got a big group.
Yeah.
And, it's
that's exciting. And when will it hit the bookstores and Amazon?
It will be out the week of September 27th, so next week. And actually, you can get a free chapter on my website at juliehansen.live, and it is the chapter on these missing qualities and the what I call the broken communication loop in virtual communication.
Oh,
So
that's great. So we'll make sure that after this show, we'll share the link for people to access this complimentary chapter. And
yeah,
then,
please do.
it's a big deal to launch your own book and to finally get it done. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yes, I know. You know.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah, it's a big buildup.
Right, right.
It's a great relief, but
Yeah, but it's great to have this out here because I know a lot of people are struggling and asking questions, and I just want to, what I realized the last year is, like you said, like you didn't know about a lot of these techniques, and most people don't, and it's why would they? But so it allows me to reach a whole lot more people and just make the experience more enjoyable for you as a salesperson or business owner and your customer, your audience.
Yeah. Well, it's great timing. I love hearing your story of passion and purpose and how you were able to take your love of acting and what you enjoyed when you were a child and thinking that, oh, I can't, bring these two things together, but you've done that. And there's a community of people that I'm sure are thrilled to be able to learn from you. And great stuff.
Yes. And by the way, I will just add, I did not have that intuitive thought that I could bring these together until, it's really 15 years ago. So it's not like I was, a newbie or anything.
That's right.
I had to have a career coach, an outside person go, why couldn't you do these two things? Because I was so ingrained on like, those two don't go together. And he's like, don't you use these all the time in sales? I'm like, yeah, well, a million.
Exactly. And I think there's so many of us today that are trying to figure out, well, what else is there for me? And I want to do something better or different that's more impactful, or I'm using more of my talents. And we're fearful and we are resistant to looking at what we love, what we're great at, what strengths we have, and then looking at all of our wonderful life experiences and how can we connect all the dots to that and live that way on purpose. And in your case, you're able to create a work life around that, which is absolutely fabulous.
It is. And I would just say to anyone who's struggling with that, have someone else look at what you do, because I know for me and a lot of people I know, we're just not good at, we're like, oh, that, and everybody does that. It's like, no, everybody doesn't do that.
You're special. That's great. Well, thanks so much, Julie. And I hope that our audience will reach out to you for the chapter in your forthcoming book, but also just really to get some more insights on what they can do to be more professional, more trustworthy, a better listener, have empathy, and hopefully improve their sales performance. So great to see you, and I'll talk with you soon. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Bye-bye.